Welcome to episode 521 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton. A 2-1 Shakhtar Donetsk win in the Champions League feels a lot like why I do the 5 headlines. There are good headlines, there are bad headlines, and there are those headlines right in the middle. So I think that's exactly what we're going to do today. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do that right now, or give me a good rating if you're listening to this in your ears on any of the podcast apps. But without further ado, let's do it. The 5 headlines from Barcelona's 2-1 victory over Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League. Headline 1 is standard of the group. Somebody asked me after the Athletic Club match the other day if I care about how the team plays and not just about the result. And after this match against Shakhtar, I'll reiterate what I said last week. I'm not really bothered about how the team is actually playing at this point in the season at all. We talk a lot about Xavi's project and Barca's faults and all that stuff, yada, yada, yada. But I just can't look past the fact that this squad is hopefully in no way the team that would need to win a must-win game in the Champions League in April. They look nothing like them at all, and I'm hoping they're not playing even if the players were the same as they were last season. Yes, there were injuries to the center backs in the Champions League, and that's one of the big reasons I think Barcelona crashed out, obviously. But as a total team, you'd think, well, the center backs not being as good, but the structure and Xavi's plan and all that stuff should at least look similar from October to April. But as we know, even starting in January, that it didn't. Things change. Players get better. Again, players get injured and go in and out, sure, but a team can kind of find themselves over the course of the season, or they find themselves completely lost, and all of those little pieces of venom and poison in a locker room can build up over the course of the year. Because from this starting lineup, we're just even talking personnel. I can't look past the fact that from a potentially ideal starting lineup, some combination of Koundé, Balde, who didn't start today, I know he played in the second half, but did not start this one, De Jong, Xavi, Pedri, Rafinha, and Lewandowski were all missing from this starting 11 today. That's 6 to 7 players out of the 11, so not counting Balde even. So I'm not going to apologize for not expecting this to be the best version of Barcelona. The job of this Barcelona in October of 2023 is to do what the last 2 seasons of Barca failed to do. Last year's failures in Europe still managed to win the Liga, which put them in pot 1, which led to this Champions League group that isn't necessarily the best team in world football. But after Bayern Munich for the last few seasons, I'm fine with that. Barcelona won the Liga, and yeah, they got a little bit of luck, and you need a little bit of luck in the draw, but they got a group that befit the champions of Spain. That's what happened. And as you've heard me say time and time again, winning in your league is about consistency, talent, desire, and a little luck. But winning in Europe is a bunch of luck combined with mentality and top-level talent. So at this point in Europe and the Liga, it's about results and points and being in the position in January and February and later in the spring to win everything by playing your best football then. All with the hopes that this team is a lot healthier at that point too. All that to say, Shakhtar is having a down year by their standards, and Barca is much deeper than they were last year. Hence, why they did manage to take care of business tonight, but why some of my other headlines are not going to be so complimentary, because Barcelona didn't play that well. Another thought I want to have just quickly for Shakhtar Donetsk, by the way, they're playing away from home this season, and I know this was the away of the home and away, but they are playing away from home this season due to the continuing war in Ukraine. Marian Pusic had just taken over. This was his first UCL match of his career, managerial career. So I just want to give a thought out to Shakhtar Donetsk because what they're even doing in the Champions League and their season. So they're really trying to defy the odds in how they're going about their season. But Barcelona too, history-wise, again, the group, Porto, Shakhtar, Donetsk, and Royal Antwerp. I don't care who those names are, whatever it is. Barcelona, opponent be damned, have won their opening 3 games of a Champions League campaign for the first time since 2020-21. And someone who does this show, whether 5 headlines or, over the summertime and whatever, and who does this thing, the Barcelona podcast, 2 to 3 to 4, sometimes 5 when counting articles a week, 2020, 2021, I was a different, much younger, much even more naive man then than what I am now. I know that was in the post-pandemic era already, but you get the point. It was a long time ago thinking about this team and thinking about a project game in and game out. And as I said, it's not that impressive, especially against Porto, Shakhtar Donetsk, or Antwerp, but it's still a relief to have won all of those games. The 3 wins already are more than they had in the entire group stage last season. And yes, I know wins against Bayern or Inter Milan would have felt way more gratifying than a win against Shakhtar or that win against Porto, because both those games were by the slimmest margins of Barcelona's teeth, yes, but they still won those games, and they're still atop this group in a pretty good spot with Porto in second, still nipping at their heels, of course, but Shakhtar Donetsk or Antwerp now very much in the back mirror. For those who've been with me for a while, you know I can be pretty picky with sponsors. So it is with great pleasure that this video is sponsored by Sane Pictures and their film, Pele, Birth of a Legend. While this movie was made back in 2016, Pele, like Maradona and Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo someday, these figures and their stories are evergreen in the sport that we love. And you know me and my love of the history of the game. I feel like we know the legends of the past with at least the broad details. It was Pele, it was Brazil, it was the World Cups, it was Santos. But I think what gets lost is the fact that all of these legends tend to come from different places in different times. And there is so much leading to those moments we know about that we tend to forget. Pele was the only player to win the World Cup 3 different times. It feels like Brazil has always been a power in world football, but that's not the case. And this is the story of Pele's beginnings, how he became the football player the world grew to love, and how a teenager led Brazil to their first World Cup. It redefined what football could be, an attractive playing style, jogo bonito, the beautiful game. So check out Pele, Birth of a Legend by Imagine Entertainment, the team that brought you Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, and Friday Night Lights, and Sane Pictures, founded by listener and fellow Kool-Aid Yvonne Orlick, with a musical score by 2-time Academy Award winner A.R. Rahman. It's available to buy or rent most places you can settle in and watch a movie, Apple TV Plus through the iTunes Store, and Amazon being the big ones. So thanks again to Sane Pictures for sponsoring this video. Make sure to check out @Sane Pictures on IG to see updates on all the other projects they have going on as well. And after you're done with this video, make sure to check out Pele, Birth of a Legend. Headline 2 is not exactly Jaws, but sharp enough. So yeah, this is shark thing. It's about Ferran Torres, you know that. But this is more even a team thing too. Barcelona at the 26th minute of this game had 55% possession to 45% possession against Shakhtar Donetsk. And I've already mentioned the concerns I've had with the chemistry between Gundogan and Romeu. I don't know what it is. We're now, when we talk about evolving projects, we are now 2 months in to these two playing together and kind of getting to know each other, and it still doesn't seem, I'm talking about the space even, the space between those two just doesn't seem like it's fortified, like it makes any sense. And I think having Frankie de Jong be such an important part of how they build Gundogan and what he relies on with Xavi, and the same thing with Romeu, what we know he can't do, and how he relies on Xavi, to not have Xavi or Pedri or Frankie de Jong, it makes sense that Barcelona, we're going to be missing control in this match because that's not Fermin Lopez, who obviously I'm going to talk about a lot in these 5 headlines. That's not his profile to control a match. And that's also not what he's been asked to do. So I'm not asking Fermin Lopez to be Xavi. He was asked to be Fermin Lopez, which, again, we'll get to, was a good thing. What I will say, though, one of the things I found in the first half, especially when Barcelona were on the front foot, that press made a lot more sense with all of those front 5, in theory, more on the same page in their more natural positions today than what we saw against Athletic Club. But I think the issue was, I said, about that spacing, even against Shakhtar Donetsk in the second, and what the intention was to do. Every time Cancelo or Lamine Yamal or Fermin Lopez would find the ball at their feet on a counterattack, they would move the ball forward and they would do it quickly. So whenever they felt like they were being countered, the way out, and we've seen this with Balde on the left wing as well in the second half, Xavi said to these young players, or Cancelo or Balde, the outside backs, get forward, even out wide, go to the touchline, lose the ball in spaces that aren't necessarily going to hurt us. But the issue is, if you then don't have the rest of your team coming with you, and that space on that counter press, if you want to call it that, is closed down in enough time, that means that one pass, this is foreshadowing for the Shakhtar goal, by the way, one pass on your counter press, your gegenpress, there is a word for that, but that one pass on that gegenpress is going to break you down if everyone has not been able to press as a unit on that counterattack. And by that, I mean the rest defense on that counterattack. And it does feel like you're separating then. I like the press from the front 5 at times, but then you're also kind of leaving this team into 2 different groups of a 4 and then a 6 behind. So there's the front 4 with the 3 front attackers, and then Fermin Lopez, and then you have Romeu and Gundogan to drop back, trying to defend on that counter with, again, your back 4. And it just feels like you're breaking that in half. And when you have Cancelo going on his dances, again, more on Cancelo later, and then you have Alonso or Balde being, are they high, are they low, in different permutation, different phases of play, it does get things out of whack. And I think Barcelona definitely had some issues there. But back to the topic at hand, as rough as that was at moments, Barcelona were still on the front foot and still using their superior talent to be better throughout the first 30 minutes of that game. So the 28th minute, there was the goal that was offside and then onside. Gundogan to Fermin Lopez over the top, but Fermin hit the post. Again, just wonderful from Gundogan to deliver this in. He gets a lot of credit on this goal because it was onside. Then Ferran Torres on the finish, put all his laces behind it. Those really fun shots to see hit the back of the net when you really know you've put your full leg, the swing of your leg, the power behind your laces. You put it all through the ball, and that is no shot for the goalkeeper. Those are the fun goals to score. Ferran Torres finishes one just like that. And in that first half, I really did think Barcelona were going to run away with it. I think it was totally fair, too, because the way they're possessing the ball. They had the benefit of playing in that 3-2-5, again, that Xavi wants to play, putting a lot of pressure on that back line of the opposition. And that was much more evident that they were going to be able to play a 3-2-5 against a not-so-great Shakhtar side in comparison to challenges that Barca had with putting all those kinds of numbers forward against that Athletic Club press, where they could not risk putting that 5 along the back line of another team. And obviously, Athletic Club were good enough to play 4 at the back and not 5 at the back. And Shakhtar, they looked like they were trying to play 4 at the back, but they were also dropping in the extra midfield to defend at 5 at times. But Barcelona were able to also put Cancelo back into the middle of the field to deal with that extra man that they weren't worried about going wide, because Barcelona were untroubled by their Shakhtar wingers. At least, again, this is all in the first half. But to sum up the not exactly jaws, but sharp enough, Ferran Torres got that first goal. We're going to talk about it in a second. Played a role in the second. It's not an amazing day. Ferran Torres probably should have had a brace or even a hat trick in this game. I thought he was influential. He was on the ball a lot. He was dropping in a lot. He was pressing hard. And I think for Ferran Torres, that's kind of what you ask of him. Lewandowski is injured. Rafinha is injured. And Lamine Yamal is still learning. All those different things. So Ferran Torres, we ask you to play on the right wing. We're asking you to play in the center. Wherever Xavi and that coaching staff is saying, we want you here. That is where Ferran Torres has gone, and I thought he was good enough today, so a thumbs up for me from Ferran Torres. Headline 3 is full measure Fermin, so double thumbs up from Fermin Lopez, who was deservedly the man of the match in this. Even from the opening whistle, you felt like Fermin Lopez, okay, this kid's feeling himself today. He was unlucky, and he was lucky. He made his own luck, which is what you want to see from a young player. He had that early chance that he missed from Oro Busquets. Barcelona kept it in on the high press. And I know that was a miss, but that was the first time where I repeated what I've been saying about him all season, is that I really like the positions that he puts himself in goal-scoring positions. Yes, he is a natural goal-scoring attacking midfielder or a winger or whatever. So yes, he's much more attack-minded than being a regular interior. But to play for Xavi, and I can't believe I'm saying this name again, but this is kind of the Ricky Puig argument. And Fermin Lopez, yes, he scores more than the way that kind of replacing the final ball that we expected Ricky Puig to have with the goal-scoring chance that Fermin Lopez is taking. The positions that they took on the field are very similar. You still watch Ricky Puig, well, at least I do, with the LA Galaxy, and he gets farther forward. He is their attacking midfielder, very much the way that Fermin Lopez was for Barcelona today and is every time he comes on the field when he's not being asked to be a false 9 or a winger. So this was high interior Fermin Lopez today, and he just puts himself in positions that Ricky Puig didn't. And much like Puig, even on that rest defense and that work rate and things like that, he's in a much better rest defense positioning, and he's able to cut out counterattacks to a better effect. He still is missing a ton of learning to do in that category, and I think that's why Xavi wouldn't just start him against Real Madrid. Because the idea is, well, kid on Wednesday had a man-of-the-match performance. Yeah, I know there's Gabi, but with the way Oro Romeu is playing, why wouldn't you sit Oro Romeu and have Gabi? I mean, he's been fine as a pivot, or you have Gundogan play the pivot, and then you have Gabi and Fermin Lopez as your interiors. Why would you not do that? Well, the answer is because when you lose the ball, Fermin Lopez, by being in those positions he's in going forward, or at least he's not always in the right positions. He's trying to take too many of those positions forward that you can't trust him. But he is leaving space in behind, and he's not always prepared to defend in the positions he needs to be to defend. But in the first half against a team like Shakhtar Donetsk, who just kept losing the ball in bad positions and we're not doing that press very well, Fermin Lopez was absolutely a difference maker here. And he deserved the goal he got. 36th minute, the 2-0 comes. Inigo Martinez, wonderful line-breaking pass to Ferran Torres. I'll repeat that again. When I say about the level, it was also a question about whether or not Christensen. I know I'm kind of doing some El Clasico preview now. I'll do a bunch of that later in the week, of course, as we near that match. But Inigo Martinez, that question of him or Christensen, who should start next to Araujo for El Clasico, Inigo Martinez's form has deserved it, but again, I think the things that he has done at such a high level are almost an exaggerated version of what I thought Eric Garcia would do well last season. He's really good on the ball. He carries the ball as well as you'd want a center back to carry it into different passages of play when teams are playing in a medium to low block. And even against Athletic Club, we saw a good physical game from him, But yes, he does leave a little bit of things wanting in his positioning against higher level competition. So I wouldn't start him against Real Madrid, but I'm also not sweating it if Xavi does and says, hey, this guy's in form. This is the guy we're going to go with. Again, his line breaking stuff, that'll work against Shakhtar Donetsk more often, but that'll also work against Real Madrid. That'll also work against Athletic Club. It doesn't matter. Inigo Martinez is really good on the ball. But back to why I'm praising him so much, that line breaking pass to Ferran Torres, who positionally, we're talking about positions being the problem, but he was close enough to João Felix at that time, that being Ferran Torres, that allowed Fermin Lopez to make that run off of their central positioning. And that meant it was easy for Fermin to shape his body to receive the ball and push forward right into the move to set up his shooting motion. He still had a lot of work to do, but it was just perfect build-up, and João Felix gets no credit. Didn't touch the ball, wasn't really a part of this, but his positioning next to Ferran Torres gave Torres the space that he needed to receive from Inigo Martinez and have enough space and time to grab his wits to immediately find Fermin Lopez, who is also making a run and setting himself up in position. So that's great stuff all around from Barcelona on the goal. And again, most impressive for me, from Inigo to start it and Fermin to finish it. The stats are in his favor too. By the end of the first half, of the 9 shots that Barca had taken, 4 had come from Fermin, and 2 of the 4 had gone on goal. And that's one of those little things with attackers or forwards or goal scorers, whatever, that you want to see. If you put that thing on frame, again, good luck finds you. So Fermin Lopez, 2 of the 4 were on goal. Good things were going to happen. It was unfortunate that both Ferran Torres was offside in the second half, as was Fermin Lopez, offside for that winning header. But yeah, a header for Fermin Lopez. Like, you see that picture of him when he was like 13, 14, 15 years old, and the other guys look like they're clocking in, clocking out for their shift down at the factory in their 40s. And Fermin Lopez, I mean, this is like the U16s or whatever, I know, but they were 16-year-olds, and he did not look 16 at that time. So for Fermin Lopez to not only grow in himself, but now even be an option off headers and things, like, it's so astonishing to me, the leap that not only his body took, but he has taken as a player. So awesome for Fermin Lopez. I'm glad that I can look back at this match and say, hey, Fermin Lopez got you 3 points in the Champions League group stage. That's awesome, because now I expect Lewandowski and Pedri and Gavi and De Jong and Araujo and Koundé and Ter Stegen and Gundogan and your real stars. I want them to win multiple games, but if you get 3 points because Fermin Lopez was the best player on the field, I'll take that any day of the week. Headline 4 is Portugal Burn Out. This is all about Cancelo and João Felix, because I'm seeing a lot of criticism of them and their issues as players, or they didn't do this, they didn't do that. João Felix needs to be more clinical. Cancelo needs to be a better defender. I'm seeing those different things, and I think there's a bit of truth in the narratives of players that we already have, which is true. Like, Cancelo is, I mean, he's an attacker. He's a winger in a right back's body, if that's what you want to call it. And so when he gets forward and is incisive, Barcelona's putting the ball in the back of the net, and he doesn't have to worry about defending. Or they're keeping possession so long in the attacking third, and that press is all clicking, that again, he doesn't have to worry defending on the counterattack. But it seemed like today, to me, Cancelo, this isn't defending him. He has his issues, but I felt like today were more about a lack of rest, a lack of rotation for him, than it was more about systemic issues with Barcelona and what he doesn't do defensively. The first time this kind of popped up to me was in the 25th minute. He makes this move, shot goes right at the keeper, and it just looked like, I know I always bring up the basketball, but the NBA started yesterday. How can you blame me for this? But when shooters are short on shots, especially late in games, and you know that it has something to do with their fitness or they're playing too many minutes, and you see that in overtimes a lot of the time. And it felt like that shot. And so many times with Cancelo in this game, he had that dribble move where he lost the ball in the 79th minute, and Shakhtar Donetsk could have gotten an equalizer in that moment, but he felt sloppy in this game. And there was that moment, I think, in the first half, too, when he tried to make a move. The ball just kind of rolled away from him. But instead of jumping immediately on the press with Lamine Yamal, he kind of allowed the Shakhtar Donetsk player to almost surprise themselves that how much time and space that they had, and they weren't getting any pressure other than Lamine Yamal, who was coming back to press from a position that wasn't goal side of the Shakhtar Donetsk player. And all those different moments made me think that Cancelo was just kind of conserving his energy, and he's kind of run out of gas, which is not good for El Clasico, by the way. Or maybe he was going in second gear with already an eye on El Clasico. That would be, hopefully, my conspiracy theory that I'm hoping would be correct. João Felix today also coming off injured. Just since they've arrived, those guys have played and played and played and played and played. Cancelo has played 90 minutes in every match for over a month. We're at Antwerp, he was taken out in the second half, which was over a month ago. And since that time, he's played 90 minutes in every match. missing Roberto for just the last 15 minutes of this match even to come in and play right back, and having Koundé there. You could have, obviously, if Roberto and Koundé are both healthy, you throw Koundé on, and then you move Araujo, or Koundé plays right back, and you close out that match by giving Cancelo a rest in preparation of El Clasico. I just think he's been playing too much, and I'd rather say that at this juncture in the season, especially when he is playing too much and playing 90 minutes, game in and game out, international break with Portugal, and all those minutes, than be that concerned about Barcelona structurally having issues defending a counterattack down his wings and different things like that. I think Xavi has already adapted to the issue with Cancelo by taking him out of the middle of the field in a lot of different circumstances, including the second half against Shakhtar Donetsk. That middle position he had when Barcelona were on the front foot, they stopped doing that in the second half. Not to defend that lead, but because it just wasn't working. And he wanted Cancelo to stay farther out wide to the touchline, as Lamine Yamal was also slowing a little bit. It was nice to see Mark Yu, which I know 1,000 people have given me pronunciations on, and Mark Casado, but I would have really liked to see Hector Fort make his Champions League debut coming on for Cancelo. Or you put Pau Cubarsí, you give him his Champions League debut, and you move Araujo out at the right back spot if that was really the issue. But I didn't like to see Cancelo playing 80 minutes today. I would have even had Balde play right back and leave Alonso on. So those are all the permutations. To me, priority number one would have been giving him some rest and rotation, but maybe the physios and Xavi know more than me, but I don't know. There's also half the team is injured, so I don't know who I can trust at this point. And headline 5 is easy to diagnose. I know people will look at the counterattack and what they want to say large systemic issues with this team, and I will concede this. As I said before, a horizontal pass on the ground in their own half should not have gotten Shakhtar Donetsk in such a good spot to score the goal they scored. But a bunch of guys then had to make bad decisions for this goal to happen. I wonder, did Araujo communicate that he was going to pinch out on the wing? He usually does. He's a great communicator. But did he communicate that before he made that pinch out to the right wing? Did he have to do that, by the way? Or could he have just stayed on that line, closed out that angle, and used his superior physical tools to make sure that no shot got off? Did he have to pinch on the wing in that moment? Ter Stegen probably could have better shut down that angle on Sudakov's shot. Probably could have come out a little earlier, closed down the angle a bit better, didn't, and it's a goal. But Romeu, that's who we're talking about here on this goal. He lost the man. He was goal side, and then he wasn't. That can't happen. Even if he takes the yellow in that circumstance with a shirt pulled down. I mean, even if it's a red, if you're that far behind, he just got beat in a way that you can't get beat in the Champions League, regardless of the competition. Or La Liga. It doesn't matter the competition. You can't get beat like that. And if Araujo has already gone out wide, then you got to just sprint right to goal even. Like, you got to put yourself in a position to be able to defend. Whether he's been playing too many minutes too, I know Xavi does take him out around the 60th minute of games he starts. So I don't know if maybe, or Romeu, if you're going to call him old, you're going to call me old, but maybe he has already played a bit too many minutes. He doesn't have those miles and speed left in the second half of these games if he's already played the first half. And I want to mention too, Cancelo at that point obviously having a snack upfield because Barcelona had possession on a counterattack, and as I said, there were issues with the gegenpress for Barcelona in this game. And I do hate to pin a goal on just one player, but to me, if I'm assigning blame here, that's like 85% Romeu, 5% Araujo, 5% Ter Stegen, and 5% everybody else who didn't stop that counter earlier when Shakhtar Donetsk, again, took one pass to get out of their own half. All that to say about what's easy to diagnose, that's a good thing to me heading into El Clasico. My bigger issue with El Clasico is all the walking injured. There are great players that Barcelona has. Again, half of their starters might be available. Well, half of those starters that aren't available might be available. Lewandowski, Pedri, Rafinha, we don't know about any of their status. De Jong apparently up in the air. Like, it depends on what you read and when you read it. Who's going to be available, how much they're available for. But if this is the team that Barcelona have to face Real Madrid with, they're not going to be, talent-wise, on paper, as good as Real Madrid. But I don't think the structural issues that people are worried about against Real Madrid are really that apparent. But I want to get into more of that with a preview later in the week, so look out for that. Because as always, you know where to find me. It's all down in the show notes in the description, whether you're listening or watching. Subscribe or give me a good rating. That's always the most helpful way to help me out and help make sure that I keep doing these things, as well as help me out on Patreon. So shouts to all of them and those that have continued to even sign up after all these years as well. Thanks and shouts to those new Patreons. Most importantly, though, thanks so much for listening to the show. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Forza Barca.